you got the first question. All right. Well, so it's all right. It's four after. I'm sure some people will join here. We'll get into it here. Like I said, this is honestly the first time I've went live for this amount of time. I did a few tests just a little while ago to make sure it works. Hopefully I'm not moving around too much. But I'm Bosn Hopperdietzel. Right now I work with the National Data Buoy Center. And before that, I was a senior chief. And I have my multi-mission ashore and afloat certifications. I did command XPO and OIC for 10 years. So I have some, I've got the background and everything. I had, you have some few things that happened during your time. When I was the XPO, my OIC was relieved for gun decking, so I got to take over a station. So I got to do that. And unfortunately, when I was OIC, I had an XPO that decided that he was going to use his government card because he was in charge of it, and he got relieved. So I got some crazy stuff that happened in the background. If other people want to know about this stuff or talk about it, I'm always around. My job I'm home almost every single night unless we're traveling. So for the OIC, just to put a plug in, by far, being an officer in charge was my best time in the Coast Guard so far. Hands down, was absolutely amazing. For the Coast Guard to give us the responsibility when you're enlisted, and then if you make the switch over to Bosn to be a OIC and then a CO is just tremendous. I'm humbled that I had the opportunity, and hopefully before I get out again, I can do it again. Now the OIC process, near and dear to my heart. I've sat on boards. I've been on both sides of it, of course. D9, D8, multiple colleges in both districts. It's a great process. It's a very fair process. I think it's gotten better. It's gotten more streamlined. The colleges are pretty much mirroring themselves to the district boards, which is important. Your sector and district boards should mirror each other. I think the sector board should be harder, so when you go to district, you're ready for it. I definitely wanted to give a shout out to Nick McGowan for setting this up. This is awesome. You look at 10 years ago, I wouldn't be sitting here going live on Facebook. That's just not. I wouldn't have even thought about anything like this or doing a virtual college. I saw the captain from 731 was on the other night. All of this takes a lot of time and effort. I hope everyone that's on here understands that everyone you see has a vested interest in this. We love the process, and it shows. We're all here for you guys. We don't want anyone to fail on the board. Nobody wants to say, you didn't pass, come back. Happened, but we want everyone to pass. All right. Also going to plug mock boards. They're putting together mock boards. If you've never sat a mock board, sit them. It's just going to help you. Go in front of people as much as you can. It gets your nerves out. You kind of get an understanding of what's going to happen. Even if it's 5 minutes of questions from each different person, that's fine. It gets you in the mindset of the board, and you can understand what's going on. I can't stress that enough. Even if you go to colleges, sit the mock boards they have there. It does nothing but help you for your district and your sector and district boards. All right, so Navrules. The one good thing fortunate about this one topic is everything is right here in one book. But it's not as easy as that, as I'm sure all of you understand. The one thing that I am going to talk about here is this isn't going to be like Navrules 101. I'm not going to go from Rule 1 and go all the way through the book. You're on this right now because you're getting ready or you're preparing to sit for an officer in charge review board. If you're struggling with Navrules now, you're definitely going to want to get with somebody, because you don't want to go on the board if you're struggling with Navrules. This, half hour to an hour, I can't have that awe moment where you're like, oh, Navrules makes sense. This is something that is near and dear to Bosn's mates. When you hear that people are failing the boards, they say they're failing because they forgetting how to be bosun's mates. Well, we're bosun's mates, and we drive boats. We drive cutters. You have to have this stuff. You have to memorize it. If you're not good at memorizing, I forget things all the time. I have to go back. That's just me. I go back and I look at things. I look at things and look at things. I don't have a photographic memory. I can't always remember everything that's there. But Navrules is something pretty important. You just can't let that slip. So let me look at this. Okay, so before we dive into more of it, remember, the board members have 10 minutes. 10 to 12, 15 at the most that they're going to be asking you questions. They're not going to spend 10 to 15 minutes just specifically on Navrules. I've never seen it. There's other OICs that are on here and COs tonight. If they've seen it, please type in there, but you have an individual that normally does multi-mission afloat, and they're going to have mo boards, they're going to have nav standards, and probably Navrules. So they have 10 minutes to ask you these questions. They can't sit there and say, what's rule 1? What's rule 2? What's rule 3? You're going to run out of time real fast. They need in 10 minutes to get an overall grasp that you do understand Navrules, and they're going to give you some scenarios. I've seen scenarios with the mo board when you have to figure out who is your greatest threat on the mo board, who are you worried about. Then they'll change the scenario and say, fog is set in, you can't see anything, and then it goes from there. So you could be asked 3 different Navrules scenarios in one large scenario. So you're just going to have to flow with it. You just don't sit down and expect somebody to just be like, what's rule 6? What's rule 7? What's rule 8? It's going to be hit or miss on that. Yeah, you need to know it, but just think about that. You got 10 minutes, and then they're going to move on. I always make notes, so you got to give me a second here. All right, so the first question I had on here, during the boards, are we looking specific memorization of the rules, i.e. Rule 6? I'm definitely going to get into Rule 6. I'd memorize the rules. That's just something you need to do. This is something that I said, we're bosun's mates, it's going to stick with you your whole career. Unless you go to a sector and you're just hanging out in an office and you're no longer at a station or on a 87 and below. But it stays with you. So, yeah, you need to memorize the rules. Memorize them. It does seem a little daunting at first, but you're looking at 1 through 18. And it's really important that when they do spit out Rule 6 during the board, that you can start flowing right into it. And that's something that if you just spit out Rule 6 instantly, board members are going to be like, all right, individuals obviously opened the book. They've looked at it. They're understanding it, hopefully, and then they're going to dive into a few more questions to make sure you understand it. Memorizing doesn't mean you understand Navrules. I've seen people memorize Navrules and can't apply them. That takes some time. It's on way time going through scenarios with people and understanding how to put each different rule into effect. Hopefully that makes some sense out there. So, let's see if I missed anything. Now, the other thing I want to plug is make sure you're studying from the most current Navrules book. And every once in a while, I run into some people that don't realize that there are corrections for your navigation rules and handbook. That you just need to make sure you're using the right one, especially if you're taking the test. Don't go sit for the OIC board if your DWO test is expired. You have to keep it up. That's something that's for us. It's for the bosun's mates. Nobody's here to hold our hand. Keep up with your DWO test. Everybody knows you got to take it every 5 years. I wouldn't take it every 5 years. I'm looking around 2 at the most. But then remember, when you get orders for certain positions now, you have to pass it within, what is it, I think 6 months or 12 months. I'd have to look at it exactly, but you don't have time to be, you don't want to get orders and then start taking a test, and then you fail it, and then you lose orders to your dream job. Keep up on it. All right, so anyone have any questions right now before I open up the book here? Oh, maybe there are some. Hold on. I got to move down. I said, this is my first time. I just realized, all right. Perfect, yeah, let's see. Navrules. Since I was just multi-mission and ATON, board members drilled me on Navrules the entire time. That's tough. All right, and Nick pointed out, like he said, you don't have to have the rules memorized, but you do have to hit the aspect. There's main key aspects in these rules that if you do miss one of them, that's kind of a big point. Well, and I'll try to point out some of these as we go through them. Like I said, I'm not going to hit Rule 1, and we're not going to go all the way to the annexes tonight. That's just not what we're here to do. I don't think. If you need something like that, I'll be glad to sit down with anybody, and I can go live again. We can talk about this, and I can do like Navrules 101, and I'd be glad to sit down with anyone and start from Rule 1, dive through it, Rule 2, dive through it, but unfortunately, half hour to an hour, you just don't have that kind of a time frame. So, make sure I don't miss anything here. All right, so I'll look on there. Does anybody have... Oh, yeah, thanks, Jeremy. You put it up there, 6 months and 2 tries. So that goes back to a point that I just mentioned. You get orders, 6 months, 2 tries. Don't lose orders because you forgot to keep up on your Navrules. That would stink. All right, now, so I'm just going to hit Rule 1. The general rule application. Does anybody have any questions? I'm sure we can skip some of these because there's some big ones where I'm sure you guys are kind of itching to maybe ask some questions. I'm gonna hit that. 2, Rule 2 responsibility. Nothing in these rules shall exonerate any vessel or owner, master, crew. General definition. Okay, so I'm already up to, so I mean, go to Rule 4 and 5. Even on Rule 5 for lookout, everybody knows everyone needs a proper lookout. So let's get right to one of the main rules that you're going to hear about. It's going to be asked on every board. Rule 6, safe speed. I have seen on a board where people have a hard time memorizing what Rule 6 is. I've seen them ask the question, well, can you explain to me what Rule 6 is? And then the candidate says, I didn't memorize it by rule. And then the board member said, safe speed. And I have seen that, but you should be able to try to get Rule 6 safe speed down. And when I said you want to hit the key points, this first paragraph in Rule 6, when a candidate asks you, can you explain to me what Rule 6 is? It shouldn't be too difficult to start kicking off. Every vessel at all times shall proceed at a safe speed, so they should take proper and effective action to avoid collision and be stopped within the appropriate distance for the prevailing circumstances and conditions. That should kind of flow pretty quickly. As long as you hit the key points in that, it's important, but they're also going to ask you, determining safe speed, the following factors need to be taken into account. You can't forget the 2 factors. You have by all vessels, and then vessels with operational radar. I'll be honest with you, my first board, this was my second question. They asked me what safe speed was, and I rattled off the first part of the first paragraph. And then the exact question was given, what vessels fall under safe speed? I drew a blank. I did it the way the wording was thrown to me, I didn't understand what he meant. I kept saying all vessels. I should have just stopped freaking out for a minute, take a breath, remembered Rule 6. All he was looking for was by all vessels or vessels with radar. Little things like that in the board can really throw you for a loop. That was, like I said, I think my second question, and we just finished the Mo board, and I thought, oh no, I just screwed up Rule 6. Now we're going to move on. I'm done. I don't know what to do here. It happens. You got to try to get past that. So, by all vessels, you're going to have to spit this out. State of visibility, traffic density, maneuverability of your vessel, the state of winds, sea current, proximity to navigations and hazards. And then you dive a little further into it. Vessels with operational radar. You should be able to pick out a few of these, just like Nick said earlier. Characteristics, limitations, any constraints imposed on the radar scale. So you don't need to know every single line, word by word by word, but pick out the key points in here and try to portray to the board that, yes, I know Rule 6. I know the key parts to it, so then we can continue on. Anybody have questions on Rule 6 for safe speed before I move on? I don't know if I've missed any questions here. Oh, I think I have one here. There we go. Spelling out the rules and... Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mike had said spitting out the rules and knocking the Navrules portion of it truly sets a tone for the board, and it does. It's just, like I said, everything's in the book, and spending a good bit of time memorizing the key points to this, it's just important. We can't stress it enough. All right, Rule 7, risk of collision. How's your watch schedule on the 87? All right, so we just had a question that popped up here. How is your watch schedule on an 87 at anchor to comply with Rule 5? Who's doing your generator rounds? I was actually on an 87, and underway, we had two, of course. We have two, yeah, I had two up there. The Cumos were cross-deck to do engineering. So there's a good question. You're at anchor. On your 87, is your anchor OD or Cumo, whatever you want to call it, are they going to drop down below and do an engineering round and then come back up to the bridge without anybody being up there? Anyone? What does anyone think? That could be a question that can be asked, and there's nothing to it. Hey, you're the OIC on your 87. How is your watches going to be run at anchor? All right. Rule 7, risk of collision. Right away here, we're on A. Just to be able to spit this out, every vessel shall use all available means to prevailing circumstance and condition to determine if risk of collision exists. If there is any doubt, such risk shall be deemed to exist. Those are some key points. If there is any doubt, such risk shall be deemed to exist. If you think it is, then guess what? Keep an eye on it. What do we talk about? What is the acronym that we use for risk of collision? CBR, constant bearing decreasing range. I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's something that you're going to look at on a mow board, figure out who is your main person that is at risk when you're sitting for your multi-mission to float. You got to figure it out. Here's a question. Can you have constant bearing and steady range and still be at a risk of collision? Got to keep up with you when you come through. I don't know how long my delay is, so I'm kind of sitting here waiting to see if I see an answer. With that question I just asked, yes. Okay, there we go. Correct, yeah. Because we go right back to the beginning of this. If there is any doubt, assume it exists. I won't move on here from Rule 7 for risk of collision. What anybody have something in there that they really want me to look at or talk a little bit more about? All right. Well, we'll move on and we'll keep plugging away. If you see something, I'll try to keep up with the questions. Remember, any COs and OICs out there, if you see something, spit it out. All right, Rule 8, actions to avoid collision. Once again, key aspects of this rule. Any action to avoid collision shall be taken in accordance with the rules of this part and shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, be positive, made in ample time, and due regard with the good observation of good seamanship. Once again, you got to kick into this is A, right here, Rule 8, action to avoid collision. You got to hit the key points of A. I can move into B. Any alteration of course and or speed to avoid collision shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, be large enough and readily apparent to the other vessels. You're not going to make a 3-degree course change. It says it needs to be large enough, especially if they're observing it by radar. A succession of small alterations of course and or speed shall be avoided. And then they get into it. So another key point. If there is significant sea room, alteration of course alone may be the most effective action to avoid a close quarters situation. Another key point, you have to do this if they're doing it on the mow board and you're making an alteration. Look at the mow board and make sure you're not coming right on the mow board question and you've now created another close quarters situation. They can set you up for that. You can't avoid a close quarters situation and set yourself for another close quarters situation. The other thing we'll hit on E right now. So if you need more time, of course, you slacken your speed, take way off. If necessary, you reverse. You got to give yourself enough time to figure out what's happening. All right, so anyone else have any questions on Rule 8, actions to avoid collision? Said, I'm not going to dive deep into every single line item of this. It's just you were at a point, and you just need to kind of bone up a little bit more on them. That's fine. But if you're really struggling on them, you're going to have to hit this book hard. All right, we can hit, narrow channels. We can hit some of that when I try to get to some scenarios here. Traffic separation schemes. Anyone have any questions that we can quick talk about here? A little bit narrow channels and traffic separation schemes that you're struggling to figure out, or it just doesn't make any sense to you. Hold on a second. So how to remember what rule 9 is. 9 and narrow channels start with N. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, never mind. I'm following you there. Key points again, like we're talking about. If you want, if you struggle in memorizing rule 9, a vessel proceeding along their course, channel or fairway, keep to the near or outer limits of the channel or fairway, which lies to her starboard side. Just a key point where you got to remember there, your starboard side. Just digging through here to see if there's any crazy points on this. Okay, what about conduct with vessels in sight of one another? I see this. People get stuck on this. I've seen it on the boards for some reason. And do not get into the scenario when they tell you you're underway and you're in fog. You have a vessel off your port bow and you hear one prolonged blast. Who has the right of way? Are you within sight of one another? No, you're not. A lot of times, for some reason, I've seen lots of people go down this road that right away they're thinking, well, I think I have the right of way. Or no one has the right of way. You can't see each other. Does that make sense? You're in fog. Sailing. Now, I'll tell you one thing. I've never sat on one or seen one where they talk about two sailing vessels approaching. Yeah, you're going to run into sailing boats and stuff out there. But that's when we get into our hierarchy of vessels. And I'll discuss here a little bit about the hierarchy on vessels. And we'll hit that, but have it memorized. Don't come into the board and write down little, non-rates, can, full, senior. Please don't do that. That's something that you don't need to write that down. You need to have that memorized. That's got to spit out of your head just like that. Yeah, that's something that the board members don't want to see that. All right, Navrules. Told that the rule number plays a key role in the correct answer. For example, Paul was asking one point in Navrules I learned not taking long ago. I have not confirmed, but do you guys think I've been told is the rule number plays a key role in the correct answer? I've seen it both ways. Other people on here, like I said, other COs and OICs can roll in. I've been, my last sector board that I sat on, I did underway a float. I did the Navrules portion. And I did have a candidate that just for some reason, the numbers were just mixed up in their head. They said, I don't know the numbers. The numbers just screw me up. But when I said, tell me what you know about Rule 6, tell me what you know about safe speed. Well, as soon as I said safe speed, they just went off and they just spit out the entire rule verbatim, just nothing. Actions to avoid collision. They flew right into it. So I'm back and forth on that. Yeah, I say memorize the rules by the numbers, but everyone learns it differently. I can't say yes you should or no you shouldn't. You should know the rule. Try to memorize the rule number, but if the numbers get all messed up in your head, tell the board members, hey, I'm horrible with the numbers. What do you want to hear? That's just what I've seen. Other people, I know there's hey Kevin, just saw that you joined. I know you've been on boards. What do you think with that? Like I said, I have no idea how long of a delay I have here. Let's keep going. I noticed, man, this time kind of flies. So we'll quick dive into a question that I know you're going to have that just is almost on every Navrules questions. What are the 3 types of situations? I'm going to get into those right now, and we can quick talk about that. 30 to 40-second delay posting. Okay. That's good to know. It's crazy that it's that long, but so the question was, and I'll wait here for a second to see some people that. So one question: hold on. Yeah, in accordance with the Navrules, what are the 3 types of situations? I'm sure someone's going to spit it out here: overtaking, head-on, and crossing. There we go. Now, in order, what 3 things must exist in order to constitute a head-on or crossing situation? There's one key point that you need to remember on this one. Two power-driven vessels. There we go, yeah. Power-driven for crossing and head-on. That is one of those other things to know, just the meat and potatoes of that. You really need to hit that. What 3 things must exist in order to constitute a head-on or crossing situation? 2 power-driven vessels inside of one another so that it isn't to involve risk of collision. You should be able to spit those out. Power-driven vessel inside of another. There's the collision exit. Yep, power-driven vessels. There you go. Now, see, once again, you guys are already should be deep into the rules. Overtaking. This is a question that you'll get thrown out there. If you are uncertain of overtaking or crossing, what do you revert back to and why? And hopefully my question went out there. If you are unsure if you are overtaking or crossing another vessel, what should you always assume and why? All right, so action by a giveaway vessel stand-on vessels. See, I'm not going to dive deep into those. Let me keep going into... All right, I want to get to, because I don't want to run out of time here, I definitely want to get to what I just spoke about, and then I want to get into, I don't want to miss restricted visibility. Those are some more key points that I've seen on about 90% of the boards that I've sat on and been part of. Once again, responsibility between vessels. Rule 18. Once again, this is what I was just talking about. A vessel not under command. Vessel ability to maneuver. You should be able to set these out. And I understand sometimes you're going to get flustered in the board. If you have to remember the acronym in your head, remember it in your head, but try to get that out. It should be very, very quick, very fluent. Out it goes. You shouldn't have to wonder if this vessel oversees this vessel. You don't want to sit there for too long thinking about just responsibility between vessels. That's kind of something that you should be like, oh, nope, I know that this vessel is over this and that, and just move on from that. You don't want them to start thinking about that. Correct. So back to the one question that I brought up. Jeremy just answered it correctly. He said, Matthew, you have reasoning, but I think it says assume it's overtaking. Correct. Back to the question I said, if you're on the bridge and you aren't sure if it's crossing or overtaking, you're back and forth, you're going to revert back to overtaking because that puts all of the onus on you. You don't want to be like, well, I think we're crossing, I have the right of way. If it's between crossing and overtaking, you're going to be overtaking. Go back to overtaking. That puts everything on you. Then that other vessel is sitting there. You're going to make sure you're passed and clear and watch the situation until it's over. If you revert back to crossing, now you're back and forth with, oh, I think I am the stand-on vessel. And the other vessel thinks, this guy's overtaking me. So always revert back. All right, conduct of vessels in restricted visibility. You will be asked restricted visibility questions. And like I said, sometimes this refers back to your MO board. Depends upon the individual that is asking you the questions. They may incorporate scenario-based questions with the MO board. You could have 5 contacts on there. Who are you worried about? You're like, oh, D. I'm worried about D. We have CBDR. All right. Then they're going to come back and say, now you have 20 yards visibility. You can't see anything. What are you going to do? Who are you worried about? What are we going to do? So that's kind of where you're getting into different scenarios with the MO board. So, Rule 19, conduct of vessels in restricted visibility. Rule applies to vessels not in sight of one another when navigating in or near an area of restricted visibility. This is where I've seen people get into traps, like I said before. It's not a trap. It's just, if you can't see them, how are you going to figure out who has the right of way? Every vessel shall proceed at a safe speed for the prevailing circumstances and conditions in restricted visibility. Now, a few of the key points in here. A vessel which detects by radar alone the presence of another vessel shall determine if a close quarter situation is developing and or risk of collision exists. She shall take avoiding action in ample time. That's a key word in this, in ample time, and provided that such action is consistent of the alteration of course so far as possible, shall be avoided. There's 2 key points to this. If you detect by radar alone the presence of another vessel forward of your beam, even say a scenario could be you have a vessel forward of your beam, you heard one prolonged blast, what do you not do? You'll hear that. There's 2 specific things. You do not do alteration of course to port for vessels forward of your beam, other than for a vessel being overtaken, and an alteration of course towards the vessel, abeam or abaft the beam. There's a few little key points in Rule 19 that you really need to be able to articulate when that question is brought up. When you have a vessel forward of your beam, what don't you do? You're not going to turn a port. Does that make sense to everybody? That's why I haven't done the rule actually going discussion. All right. Okay, I'm not going to hit lights and shapes. All right, so I'll give everyone a chance to look that over. I do have some questions from a few previous boards that I was on, and they were from the sector and the district. Because like I said before, remember, you're going to have, you only got 10 minutes for this, so you want to leave a good impression on the multi-mission afloat guy that you know your nav, because they're going to ask probably, I'd say 6 to 7 questions for Navrules is pushing it when you have 10 minutes, unless, it was brought up earlier, he said I was only sitting for ATON, and then they're going to have a little more time on it, but if you're sitting multi-mission ashore and afloat, they got to push through a moldboard, they got to get to nav standards, they got to hit some key points in there, so don't leave them any doubt with your navigation rules and your moldboard. Those are key, those are huge. Try not to screw them up. It's something that, if you feel yourself going down that rabbit hole and you're like, I take a breath, relax, try to regain yourself, try to regain your composure. This is a question that I threw out just because I like to ask it and just to see where people's heads are thinking. You may not hear it again, but you might. Who knows? What is the most important rule to you in the navigation rules? It's just a simple open-ended question. To me, there is no right, there is no wrong question. I like to throw that out there to the candidates to see what they're thinking. Sometimes I'll lead with that just to see, if they're crazy nervous or what's going on. But just a simple question. Hey, what's the most important navigation rule to you? A lot of people will go back to safe speed. They'll kick into responsibility. And then I ask them. I'm just like, okay, if they bring up a rule, you say rule 2. Why? And can you tell me a little bit about it? If they say, it's rule 6, it's got to be, safe speed. Well, tell me what you know about rule 6. What's so important of it? And that gives the member a little bit to get into it, and I kind of figure out where their head's at right there. I'm like, okay, he knows what he's talking about, but that's just a question I like to ask. All right, we already hit, what are the 3 things? So here's one. You're underway in fog. You hear one prolonged blast off your port bow. What might this be? Once again, it's a simple question, but when you're in this environment, sometimes it's not as simple as it sounds. Don't make it more difficult. Just think in your head, what could this be? Normally, the next question is going to be, in this scenario, who has the right-of-way in this situation? This is what I was talking about just a little while ago. It's a power-driven vessel underway making way. Nobody, because you're in the fog. You can't see each other. You're not going to make radio contact. Please don't go down the road of, I'm going to contact the individual or the other vessel, and I'm going to make passing arrangements. You can't make passing arrangements in the fog. You can't see him. You don't know who you're talking to. You could think you're talking to the guy off your port bow when you're talking to some vessel that's off your starboard bow that your radar ain't picking up real well. You can't make passing arrangements unless you can see somebody. And they can continue. He is not giving way. What do you do? This is just a scenario that you just start pushing. So, and then once again, what action will you take? sound signal keeps getting louder and louder. He's on radar. You got CBDR. Reduce your speed to a minimum steerage. If necessary, you take all way off, and you back up. You got to get out of there. Does that make sense? Rule 6. I talked about this earlier. What is safe speed? Another question I'd like to ask, does it tell you what safe speed is? Does Navrules book tell you if you're on your 87 and all of these different environmentals are going on, does it tell you exactly how fast you're going to go? Does it tell you what you should do? No, it doesn't. It's not in there. But it does tell you how to determine safe speed. And that's when you can get into visibility, traffic density, your maneuverability, background, C, your draft. Then you get into your characteristics, your radar, your scale limitations, etc., etc. Got to find, yep. If I'm going too fast, let me know. Like I said, it sounded like there was about a 30-second delay. Another question, when does risk of collision exist? We touched on it. Such risk shall be deemed to exist if the compass bearing of an approaching vessel does not appreciably change. These are some of these key points of the rules that you should be able to spit out. Even says such risk may sometimes exist even when the bearing change is not evident, particularly when you're approaching a very large vessel or a vessel at tow when approaching them very closely. And yeah, you beat me to it. Any doubt, such risk shall be deemed to exist. That's kind of a fallback on that. If you're forgetting about risk of collision, just remember, if you have any doubt, I'm assuming it exists, and I'm going to act accordingly. Those are certain words that you want to hear. Now, this was another question I already asked about it. I'll skip that. So we went in. I'm just rolling through some of these. These were asked on the district board in D9 a few years ago, so I'm not like throwing any crazy questions out there that you're not going to hear. These are just a few that were on there a few years ago, and this was at the district level. And I'll just roll through a few so you guys understand that we're not trying to trick you. I'm not going to ask for question or answers on all these, but I just want you to understand that we're not looking for crazy, in-depth annex questions here. How do you calculate safe towing speed? What is the definition of a head-on situation? You are underway in fog. Visibility less than 200 feet. What should you avoid doing? What are all the factors utilized in calculating safe speed? How do inland and international rules differ for head-on situations? How many degrees should you alter your course to indicate your actions? Those are just some quick, what was that, like 6 questions I just asked? But those 6 questions right there, you're probably talking, some of those you can answer fairly quickly. Some of them you're not going to answer real quickly. So even if you get through those 6, we got to move on and we got to hit a few other points. All right, I'm not going to keep going on here. I see it's almost 7:54. I can't believe the time flew that fast. I hope I helped out. If I didn't and I made things worse, I apologize. Like I said, I'm in a job right now that if I'm not traveling and I'm not underway on a black haul, I'm home. I'm home every night. I will gladly talk to anybody on the phone for hours upon hours if you want to. My wife may not like it that much, but like I said, I love this process. I think it's an important process. It's growing leaps and bounds. I just can't say enough about the OIC process. It's such an awesome experience to be an officer in charge when you're enlisted. No other service gives us this. It's too much fun. Keep it going. I do miss it. I'll be honest with you. I can talk offline to other people on why I went from senior chief to Bosn. That I won't throw in here, but I do. I definitely miss it. My best job was I just left. Before this job, I was the OIC of Station Milwaukee. It was fantastic. I got to go back to my home state and be an officer in charge in Milwaukee. It's just amazing. So you just don't have another opportunity anywhere to get these type of certifications and get this responsibility that the Coast Guard puts on us. And yes, it's a lot of responsibility. And I tell anyone that's in the job or that's done the job, you can't stress out about it all the time. Yes, it's going to be a stressful situation. There's good and there's bad days. There's days you wake up and be like, oh man, I got to go to work again. I can't imagine what's going to happen. But there's the good definitely outweighs the bad. It's an amazing job. If you're at home every day worried that you're going to get relieved or you're going to get fired or this is going to happen, that's, to me personally, it's something that you just can't worry about because you're just going to stress yourself into a hole or you're going to start drinking. It's just not what you should do. I enjoyed the job so much. I honestly never wanted to get out of it, but I got to move aside. The younger generation coming up, it's important. But like you said, I love the process so much that I would do this all the time. I'd sit and go through every rule of the Navrules if you want to. It's what do we got? It's 3 minutes to 8. Does anyone have any off the wall questions, OIC questions, Navrules questions, anything that you're contemplating or worried about? I'd be glad to answer them or help you guys out, even offline. I'll give you a second to type any. I'm losing my voice here. I did happen to flip over a piece of paper here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but remember they're going to have mold boards and stuff, but this was just like an example. I don't know if it'll be able to, of something that I used in conjunction. I used mold boards and Navrules in conjunction with my questioning. Just a simple little thing you're going to see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else out there. I mean, I guess I can leave you with a few notes here for Navrules. Everything is in here. Yes, memorizing it helps, but you also memorizing it and knowing how to apply the navigation of the rules during the board is huge. You just got to know how to apply them. You can memorize anything all day, but if you can't spit it out and make the board understand that you know what's going on, that's going to be tough. But like I said, I applaud all of you for doing it. It is a difficult process. It's meant to be difficult. If it was easy, everyone would do it. I don't think everyone should be an OIC. That's me personally. We can have an offline conversation on that if you want, but that's my personal my opinion on that. Not everyone's meant to be an officer in charge. And I really applaud all of you for doing this, taking the time. It's a great process, and it is time consuming. You're going to go through a whole range of emotions, from I can do this to I can't do this. This is impossible. I'm going to burn all my books. I quit to oh man, I can do this. Hey, look, I'm memorizing this. This is awesome. Things are going well. It's crazy the emotions you'll go through doing this. Know your distance for Rule 17. Shall, may, shall. That one threw me on the board. Eric threw one up there that quick at the end here. He said, know your distances for Rule 17, shall, may, shall. There are some key words in there. Remember, also, it just made me think, I'm going over my time here, international and inland, intent, action. He brought up, Rule 17. Quick roll back here. So there are some little key points in there, but like I said, I could keep rambling on all night and just roll through this, but the mosquitoes are coming out. Once again, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Nick for putting this on. This is huge. Sit the mock boards. Sit the mock boards. I can't stress it enough. If you have any questions, roll back through this. I saw Master Chief Smith was on here. Real good friend of mine. What are you on your third or fourth? 87 now. Chief Warrant Officer Alfonso was on here. He just took over Station New Orleans. Huge column. Let's see. Bill Butke was on here. He was a prior OIC. I saw Beth Cantrell was on here. She's currently sitting CO. You have a wealth of knowledge that tune into this every night. Reach out to anybody. Reach out to everybody. We're all here to help. It's just, that's what we're here for. I don't want to see anybody fail. I'll stop talking, and if there's anything else, I'll answer, or I'll cut out of here in about a couple minutes. Oh, one last thing. You can drink the water. You can drink the water. It's not there. It's not a joke. There'll be some water in front of you. Drink it. It helps.